And I'm sort of weird. Well, I'm really weird, but I don't like to get greasy. Love to build cars, can't stand getting greasy. Hey, welcome back to the Odd Rod Garage. It is the rare occasion that Tommy and I have to actually be able to work together today. It should be a, yeah, it's a wrestle. It's a wrestling match. It's a fight the whole day long. Anyway, I actually enjoy working with Tommy. We get a lot done, and the conversation's always interesting. So, anyway, this morning we're going to do a bunch of engine work. We got to get stuff done for Brandon. Anyway, we appreciate you guys coming by. Check out what we're doing here. We're going to do a little bit of work on a big block Chevy this morning, 454. We're going to hone some cylinders. We're going to surface the block so we can mount up our fresh heads. And we're going to get ready to install a new great big load cam so we get a little bit of bump out of this thing. First thing we'll do is we'll pull off these old gaskets. Get those out of the way a little bit. They obviously don't do us any good. And they all look to be in pretty good shape, so we're just going to do a re-ring on this block. Rings, rod bearings, main bearings, oil pump, and we have a fresh set of heads to put on it and a big cam. So we'll get a little bit of horsepower out of this girl. This is going in Brandon's truck. Alrighty, so this beat up old ugly girl is one of my most favorite things. We call it whizzy wheels, but boy, it sure makes for a nice polished surface, and it does not take away metal. So this is like a Scotch-Brite pad. Just zip through it. I'll give you a little better view of that. Alright, so it's going to get a lot dirtier before it gets clean. So right now we're just going to wipe it down a little bit. We're going to clean out the cylinders here because we're going to do a simple stone hone on it. We're going to hone the cylinders. And we already checked them and they're all within tolerance, so we should be good to. If it doesn't hone out, we're going to get a different block, but I think it will. But the ugly dirty work gets done out here with the ugly dirty people. Alright. So this is a 3-stone hone, and we just put this down inside there. We spin it with a drill, and we give some lubrication so that it does what it's supposed to do. And these little stones will scratch and make a scratch pattern on this. So, yeehaw. Well, let's see what she looks like. Get it clean, clean, clean. I put our lovely cardboard down there that'll help a little bit anyway. I use brake clean. Brake clean is very aggressive, but boy, it sure cleans stuff up nice. Then we'll wipe it all down. And as expensive as brake clean is nowadays, you want to be as careful with it as possible, but you need to have a liberal amount on so you make sure you get everything cleaned out, blown out, washed down. Oh, they want $5. But that's all right. $5 more. We'll get this as clean as we can. We'll blow it out with some air. Like I say, some people are super fanatical about it. I'm not building a Formula One engine. I want it as clean as possible. But let's face it, this engine is going to get dirt in it. It's going to have dirty oil in it. I've never seen anyone that has oil that comes out of their car after 5,000 miles. It's not completely filthy black. That indicates that there's stuff in there. Metal shaving and stuff as it wears, but there is dirt that gets in there. That's just the bottom line. So because I'm not building $1 million engine, I'm not saying I don't want to take care of it. I am saying that all right. So we have main bearings and rod bearings. These are rod bearings here. Back up. These are main bearings, and these are main bearings also, but they're thrust bearings. So the crankshaft comes in and sits down on that and doesn't allow it to walk back and forth and cause problems. So we'll get these done. Now I do some things on these that, I don't know, it's just an old habit from building engines a long time ago. Don't know if it helps at all or not. But one of the things I do is I sort of polish them up with a rag with oil on it. Just maybe sort of get it pushed in there a little bit. Some people use assembly lube, some people just use motor oil. I actually use assembly lube because with assembly lube, it's a little thicker. And, you know, if you're not going to start the engine for a month or something, that assembly lube will stay in there and keep it lubricated. The engine oil can drop out, and if you haven't started it right off the bat, then you're starting an engine with dry surfaces, metal surfaces against each other, and that is not good. So I'll show you. I'll get out a little bit of oil. We'll just give us our nice coat surface here. And there are very specific bearings. You see the two different bearings, they're very similar. This has a line in it with a hole. That's going to be the one that goes right here, so that our oil comes up out of this hole. I don't know if you can see it or not. I'll give you a shot. Then also you have these bearings, very similar, just the hole. The hole always goes over the top of the hole so that we can get lubrication to the crankshaft. Oil. We'll get ourselves a nice little cup right there. Drop some oil down in it so I'm not having to do this 20 times. Seriously, I just sort of push it down in to make sure. Now I'm going to put assembly lube on, but I want this to have a base of oil first. Some people don't like assembly lube because they say that it contaminates the oil, and technically it does. But you're going to do an oil change within 500 miles of a new startup on an engine anyway. Hopefully you do that, which will remove all of that contamination. And the contamination is just a thicker oil, basically. Saw a little bit of stuff in there I didn't like, so I figure I'll get it out right now. So these, not only do they have the oil passage right here along with the hole, it has a little notch here, so it only goes in one way. You almost can't mess this up. If you do mess it up, you were really trying. So oil is the lifeblood to an engine. The silly thing is, so many times people, as an engine gets older, it starts using more oil, and so therefore they put cheaper oil in it. And that's the exact opposite of what you should do, because the cheaper the oil, the less viscosity it has, and the less protection against wear that it has. So as it starts to get old and starts to use a little oil, people put cheap stuff in it, which makes it wear that much faster. Crazy, I know. Crazy. Good quality oil makes all the difference in the world. Alrighty. Let's get out of the crankshaft and get it cleaned up. We're going to drop our crankshaft in. Actually, before we do that, I'm going to do the camshaft. Alrighty, so we have our brand new camshaft. We're going to pull it on out of here. Got to get cleaned off also. Has cosmoline all over it. So you don't ever want to take this stuff off until you're ready to actually use the camshaft and put it in. otherwise it can potentially rust. We do not want rust on a camshaft. These bearing journals, I'm going to cover in the assembly loop. Actually, I'm going to use the competition cams. That's the stuff they sent. Then after it's inside, I'll go ahead and cover our lobes, the cam lobes. So let's see what Mr. Competition Cams has to say. Now, if I had a nice assembly room, this would be all pretty, but I don't. So, and I'll put money on it, it still runs. Get the stuff all over it, nice and pretty. The end that has the bolt holes and the pin, locating pin, the side that goes out. Now, I didn't show you before, but we actually replaced the cam bearings. That's a pain in the rear end, but I'm just making sure they're clean. We don't have any big turds on them or anything. It would get premature wear on the camshaft, which would reduce our oil pressure, would reduce the life of the cam. We don't want any of those things happening. All right, we're going to install. So these journals on this camshaft are, each one is a progressively larger size, so you couldn't put it in backwards if you had to. I mean, you could try real hard, but you wouldn't be very successful at it. Alright, so we're into the point where it's almost going to seat, and we're going to put some more red blood all over it, just because as it goes through it sort of scrapes some of it off, but I wanted the initial coat just to begin with. There we go. One camshaft. Alright, let's get a crank cleaned up. Alright, we got the crankshaft cleaned up. We're going to put some assembly lube on this girl, just to make sure that we have a good surface. Smear it around a little bit. So I should have put this in before. Maybe I'll pull it back out. This is a rear main seal. I will. So this is a rear main seal. It's two pieces. And people used to always line them up right on each other, and that is not what you want to have happen. You actually want to have it slightly offset to where you don't have that crack not covered. So it looks wrong. It's not wrong. We'll get our main caps cleaned up. These guys right here, obviously you can't mess that up either, or at least not very easily. And we'll get our lubrificationer out. And there's an arrow on these. Now these are numbered. These caps have to stay lined up with the hole that they came off from. There's an arrow that faces forward. So as long as you know the number and where it's going, you're good to go. All right. I've built more than one engine. I actually used to work for a shop in Tucson called Owl's Hot VW Parts. And we built race bugs, race Volkswagens. I know it sounds like an oxymoron, doesn't it? We actually had them flying pretty darn fast. 10 to 11 seconds in the quarter mile, normally aspirated. That's not bad. I have built probably over 100 engines, which is not a ton, but it's a ton more than most people have built. The incredible thing is, most good mechanics have never ever rebuilt an engine. Never had it as far apart as what we have it right now. Nitrile gloves do not like brake clean. Alright, so on our main bearing, again we have an offset piece right here. And one of the tricks you do is you put just a little tiny dab of sealer on these 2 points, to where when they go together, it will have a little sealer in there. You don't want a ton, where it goes all over the engine. You don't want to have enough on there that it gets in between, because then your gaps will be wrong. But we're going to put just a touch. And I'm talking just a touch. Alright, so now we're going to hand tighten these. We're not going to torque them yet. I'm not going to torque them until I have the rod bearings on, or the rods on with rod bearings, pistons, etc. But we'll get these tightened down to where it doesn't flop around. And our crankshaft spins very nicely. Alright, so even when we're just in a light tightening mode, I like to go in the proper order. We're going to work out this way so that we don't end up destroying a crankshaft. You can actually bend a crankshaft. You wouldn't think that great big old piece of metal would be able to bend so easily, but you can warp them or bend them. And that's not happy. That's expensive. So as you go along, you want to make sure that there's not a lot of resistance on anything until it seats. Then you'll obviously have resistance. But if you accidentally have some piece of turd in there or something, you could really damage everything. So we'll just lightly tighten these. And then we're going to spin the crankshaft again and make sure everything's okay. And then we'll worry about torquing it. Now the assembly lube we put in there does have some resistance to it. The thicker the oil, the more resistance it has. There we go. Beautiful. Pistons. We are messing with pistons on this 454 today. And these pistons go up and down inside this cylinder. And that's what makes your compression. That's what makes your power. We got 8 of them. We're going to get these cleaned up and put inside our big block so we can get this bottom end buttoned up and get our cylinder heads put on. On pistons, you also have a thing called a ring. Well, this is a rod. Rod bearings go on here. Rod cap. This is a rod. Wrist pin. This is the piston itself. And they're rings. These rings on here help to build the compression, to scrape oil. It seals things up. So, by the way, it's 112 degrees here today, 32% humidity. I know that's not a lot of humidity for some of you guys on the East Coast, but it is a lot of humidity for me. I hate humidity. Anyway, we have a new set of rings. We have new rod bearings. We're going to get these cleaned up. We're going to pop these rings off, and we're going to clean out inside the ring land. We will clean this all out so that our rings will move around freely, and we will get this bottom end put together. So, here we go. A little bit of cleanup video. Oh, there went my glove, of course. The gloves I have right now are pretty dismal. You even look at them and they just bust every single time. And I'm sort of weird. Well, I'm really weird, but I don't like to get greasy. Love to build cars. Can't stand getting greasy. And so that makes it difficult. It means I like to have gloves on all the time. And maybe some of you have been able to tell that I have gloves on a lot. I just hate getting oily and greasy. I used to have people all the time, like at church, that say, "Oh, I hear you like to work on cars." I say, "Yeah, I do." "Oh, well, I'll have you do an oil change on mine." Nah, don't do that. I don't even change my own oil. I take it over to the oil places because I hate getting oily. I like building custom cars, not just working on junk. Well, my own personal junk I like, but anyway, that's just, I know it sounds sort of weird. A car guy that doesn't like to get greasy. Oily and greasy, no. I don't enjoy that at all. I had a friend who's no longer with us who would, he'd just lay down with no shirt, down on the ground, transmission fluid puking all over him. We're gonna put these in our recycle bin. He just didn't care. His name was Ken, awesome dude. But man, he would just get so nasty greasy. I could never understand it. And these guys are being real boogers for me right now. Normally, it goes a little faster than this, but as you saw in my video yesterday, it doesn't ever seem to go fast for me anymore. Oh, look at that. They had them lined up improperly. So one of the things you don't want to do is you don't want to have the gaps in the rings lined up with each other, because you have a potential for oil usage and compression loss. Well, this is just being a booger. So after we get all the rings out, we will get these all cleaned up in a bath of nice. Ah, see, that one was broken. All right, so you can see here, we don't have any rings left in there. And I think these are called ring lands, but I could be wrong. But I don't think I am. So if you have a broken ring, your compression will be low if it's a compression ring. This is a scraper ring, and this is an oil ring. So if any of these are broken in here, you're going to end up having problems. We're not taking any chances. We're going to put all new rings, all new bearings, all new gaskets. So we've been working like crazy on Brandon's truck and Ben's truck, and you see we've been doing some of the C50. And we are trying to get these things done. I know I've said that before, but I just want them done and gone. I have other things waiting. Sorry, I'm just sweating like a dog. And I don't know why people say that, because I don't think dogs have sweat glands, but I've heard it said a million times, so sometimes I say things that don't make a lot of sense. Ooh, look at that. We are missing a ring. Maybe there was already one out. Doesn't matter, because we're putting new ones in. And we break these, and actually a broken ring works really well to get back in and clean those areas. You can get in and scrape real well with it. So cleanup is one of my least favorite things to do, whether it's cleaning up my yard, which needs to be done, whether it's cleaning the pistons, whether it's sanding. I hate that too. And one of the reasons I hate it is, like I told you before, I just can't. I hate getting dirty. Seems like a weird industry to be in if you're not gonna be willing to get dirty, but I hate grinding. Really hate grinding. Someone told me the other day, hey, I've seen your welding. For Christmas, I'm gonna buy you a grinder. That wasn't very nice. That was Osvaldo Rodriguez that told me that. Ozzy from work. We'll see if Ozzy watches my videos. He claims he does, but he says he hits the fast forward button all the time because he has the patience of a 2-year-old child. The attention span of a gnat. Or maybe it was the intelligence of a gnat and the attention span of a 2-year-old child. I don't remember what he said. But we'll see if he comments about this. I know I got a couple of guys at work that watch religiously. The two that I know for sure watch all the time are Merkley. He's my buddy. Another buddy of mine named Arthur. They watch all the time. Got a couple of guys who haven't watched at all. All right, we got a little bit of cleanup done. And next we're gonna get these soaking in some good detergent. We'll get them all cleaned up, wire brush. We're gonna use some broken rings to go through and clean out our ring glands. And we'll get this girl put together. All right, so what we got going on right here is Tommy is taking an old broken ring and using it as a scraper so that he can get inside there and scrape out those areas. And it works really well in the smaller areas here because it literally just cleans out all the cacahuate that's in there. Yeah. Anyway, they have fancy tools, like I said before. They don't work as well as just an old ring.
Yeah, as long as you have it busted off for a nice 90 degree, it works beautifully.
Yeah, and if you bust it, you want to use the factory end for the scraping, not the busted end for the scraping. So you see that? That's the ugly. We don't want that. That's where it's broken. That's your factory end right there. We scrape all that stuff out, and then we'll clean them up. So, come on, Tommy, let's get going. I like it to be about halfway. It enables you to get a little better cut on it. And I seem to want to push it more than drag, but it seems to cut it away faster. And there'll be little carbon buildup from inside the engine. As the engine runs, you know, it has a little bit of basically concentrated exhaust, and it'll build up behind the rings. And as you're putting in new rings, you want to make sure that you don't have something that's forcing it to protrude out. So I'm sure everybody here wanted to know about cleaning out pistons to put new rings in. But it is a fact of the matter that it has to be done before you install new rings, or you will end up with problems. as I said before, sometimes, in my opinion, people are too concerned about making everything spotless clean. Now, you want to have it as clean as possible, but the bottom line is, the second this thing fires, it's going to have all kinds of ugly, burnt up gases and things inside the cylinder. This one had a little bit of stuff still left in it. I must have done it. Hey, Tommy did tell me the other day, he said out of all the bosses he's ever had, I'm one of them. So Tommy, tell us what you're doing.
Well, since we already have the block upside down, and the ideal thing is, like say if you took this to a machinist or something like that, and they've added it and everything, obviously you need to clean it again. But you always run a runner tap down your cylinder head bolt holes.
All right, now this is a high-tech table we have here. You may be able to make one at your home if you have a lot of experience and knowledge. It's an empty box. It's laying on top of a trash can. And I like it because it sort of makes one job out of two. So as we go through and we're going to break this down, we're going to pull our rings out. As you go through and have garbage, you just dump it right in here. Maybe it's an invention, I don't know. So I'm going to show you the rings. So we have, these are Hastings rings, good quality ring. We'll get these opened up, see what we have. And we keep them separated. You got to keep it separated. This is our third. Here's our second ring. Very important that you get the rings in the right order. So let's see what we got. So I like to put on the oil ring first because I twist them on from the top down, and I don't want to have rings here that I'm trying to go over the top. Alrighty, there's our first one. Now I'm going to keep, we got our gap right there, so I'm going to put a gap about over here because our other gap on the bracelet is sitting right there. And that will make it more difficult for us to lose oil. So, do the same thing. Force that around there. Then we're going to twist it, make sure everything's good. We're good to go. We're going to put our second one in. Again, the chamfer goes to the bottom. I was wrong. Alright, we got our second ring in there. Rotates around nicely. And our last and final ring, which is the compression ring. And actually the bottom ring is called an oil scraper or an oil ring. The top one is called a compression ring, and the second one, I don't know, it's called the second ring, I guess. I don't know. Tommy, do you know?
Yeah, it just hangs out and makes sure everybody else is doing.
So it's the party ring. Alright, everything rotates through nicely. So what we're going to do is, you see the gap there, we're always going to have it opposite from the gap here. Opposite sides. To where if there is compression loss, because the rings aren't sealing quite, then it'll force it to go around, and that slows down that process a little bit. And we're good to go. So this one is ready. After we install rod bearings and wipe it down a little bit, it is ready to be put in the engine. So now I'm not going to bore you with doing the next 8. We'll shut the camera off. We'll show you when they're all done. Alright, we got a little bit of fan noise going on in the back, but as hot as it is, we are not going to shut that off. So you get what you get, you don't throw a fit. Anyway, we're getting ready to put the pistons in the cylinder. So we're all ready over here. Tommy's going to start handing them to me, and one by one we're going to drop them down in. We'll use a ring compressor. Show you that, simple tool, and we'll get this girl assembled. Alright, so when you're installing the pistons, you need to make sure that the rod does not come into contact with the rod journal on the crankshaft. So I'm going to use a hammer, but I'm not going to use the metal end of it. I'm going to use the wooden end. I'm going to tap here on the piston. At the same time, I'm going to guide the rod over the journal. Alright, got a rod cap and bolt, nuts. Go ahead and put it on. We need this to tap it on. So we're not torquing them at this point. We're just putting them on so that we can rotate the reciprocating mass around. The reciprocating mass is the crankshaft, pistons, rods. So the way I do it is, and this doesn't mean it's right, I install the piston where the crankshaft journal is the furthest away from the piston. That allows me to get the piston in and situated and be able to reach up in and guide that rod over the top of that journal so we don't ding it and end up with a problem. So maybe there's a better way to do it. I just haven't found it. If somebody tells me it's better, I don't think I'll believe them. Alright, so we have all the pistons and rods in the cylinders. We are going to torque our main caps, and we're going to come back and torque our rods. We're going to do both of those twice to make sure that we get everything, because, man, if you have one of them that's not done, it'll come apart in about 10 minutes, and you will not be happy. So. We're going to try another torque wrench. That one doesn't seem to be playing. So if we go on this and it immediately clicks, then we'll back those back off and we'll do it. No, let's keep going. Hey, if it blows up, it blows up. Now, you guys might be able to hear a click here in a second. That click is called a click type torque wrench. And that means that it is tight enough. Alright, so that's the first one. We're going to go through the other 3 sets. Alright, we are putting the oil pan gaskets on. We're going to keep on going. We'll get all this stuff here. So we have our little things that we like to do. We make sure that we get sealer down inside these corners, because that is where it has a propensity to leak. We don't like leaks. We want to keep oil inside the engine. When you let oil out of the engine, you usually have a problem. We have a screw gun that we can run this through and clean these out. These 2 right here will be cleaned out. Or a drill. Bring it back. You love all this spray paint right in your face, don't you? So almost every car we've done, other than some vintage Chevys that we painted the engine orange, we do a satin black or semi-gloss black. It just makes everything stand out better. All right. Well, so that we don't put fingerprints all over it, we're gonna let that dry up. We're gonna go grab some lunch. We'll be back in an hour or so. I'll tell you what, We kicked butt today.
Motor madness.
Motor madness. And I finally helped around here. Hey, we had a great day today. Yeah, we're a long ways away from making it run because Tommy has to go home. We got a rainstorm getting ready to happen. It never rains in Arizona. But you know what? We did a lot today. I hope you guys enjoyed watching this little motor build that we did. Check us out on Sunday. We'll have another stupid something for you to watch. Anyway, as always, thanks for watching.